Hey,
Hey, what's up,
how's it
Harry?
going? I'm good. How are you?
I'm alright, I'm pretty tired.
Hmm. So you just got out of work, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I taught my classes and I worked earlier actually, so it's like, yeah, I've been working since pretty early this morning.
Yeah,
Um,
damn.
yeah, that's rough.
You're a
I mean,
Taekwondo instructor or a
yeah,
karate?
I teach kind of a hybrid. I've taken both
Is
karate,
it like
taekwondo, but I
Shotokan?
teach. Say that again.
Shotokan? Full
Uh,
contact?
one of my instructors was Shotokan. I mean, I've taken kind of a hybrid, kind of my own thing, but I used to compete in like what was called like sport karate. It's kind of like kickboxing.
Yeah.
It's just kind of a different style. But yeah, I've taken a lot of different stuff over the years. But
Do you ever do any Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu?
I took a little bit. I never got as into jujitsu. I kind of like the stand-up stuff. But
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I moved around a lot too. And I mean, this depends where you live. Like there's better schools and people to learn from. I took a little bit of it.
Hmm. Yeah, that's cool. I did that in college. In When I was a kid, I did like Taekwondo, but it was like a McDojo. So
Yeah.
yeah, you just have to like most of the things were just learning like Korean terms. um, and then I did a little bit of sambo. Have you ever heard of sambo? It's a Russian martial art. It's like what Fedor Emelianenko. Do you know that guy?
Yeah, I know he is.
Yeah, that's what like he trained in. Vladimir Putin's like a black belt in it. It's like it's because I did like some striking with the Taekwondo, if you can count that, and some ground stuff. But I wanted to do like some grappling, so I was looking into judo, but it would take a really long time to get good at judo. So I found
Yeah.
this guy in New York City that teaches sambo. It's generally going to be hard to find someone who teaches that because it's Russian. But anyway, how's MCAT stuff going for you?
Well, I'm taking it on the 11th, and
Yeah, what a
it is what it is.
Portentous date.
You know, I keep changing it, but I'm like, I have to apply now. I'm already behind applying. Like, I have a solid application. It's just that's stupid, and I have a hard time with it. And I'm not at all making like excuses, but the longer I'm out of school, the more hardest to recall the stuff, and I can't. I'm studying pretty much full time, but like when you work full time and you own a business, it's tough. And I'm not making excuses, but I feel like I have a lot more experience.
It's definitely a whole different thing.
And I feel like they don't. I think AdComs probably do understand a little bit, but at the end of the day, you have to get a decent score on the test. It's like, but it's like at the end of the day, it's like, okay, but I have all these experience. Like you can put a kid who knows all this chemistry and throw him, feed him to the sharks, or whatever. And if you give him a patient, he wouldn't know. A lot of people don't have any clinical experience or know how to do, observations, so knows things like that. So I have a lot of clinical experience. It's just kind of frustrating, but it's just a barrier. I'm trying to get through and do the best I can.
Yeah.
Hopefully, I don't have to take it again. If I do, next time I'll just do a leave of absence at work or something, which is not ideal. But hopefully not. Things are going pretty well.
Are you working like a 9 to 5 every day?
I could adjust my hours. I don't necessarily work 8 hours a day. It just kind of depends based on like my clients like I'm working with. But
yeah.
It can be 5 to 8 hours a day. It just kind of depends. But I can stagger it out and do things in between.
Do you have like any
some days just too
off?
Say that again.
Any days off?
I am off Labor Day, and I put in the week of my test so far. I put in Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. So the 3 days before my test, I'm off.
Okay. And you have
trying to look for
weekends off as well.
Yeah, I don't work weekends. And usually I can make 4 to 5 hours a day when I'm not running my business too. So I'm getting a decent amount of time then. I'm just killing myself on the weekends and burning out really bad because I'm studying like all day long because I don't really have a choice. But
you should like
I've kind of
figured on like a Sunday or something.
Yeah. I'm just trying to suck it up and get through it. But so I'm going to talk to you about what you think the best high yield approach is going forward, like where I should spend my time as far as scheduling and what I need to do. I can kind of talk through the AAMC materials I'm going through again.
Yeah.
So for psych,
and
so
then whatever answers you get wrong, you can make like an Anki deck for. That's how I did the psych soc, like, you know, whichever things I got, because it's mostly terms and like that's the section where content comes into play. Psych soc. It's like
that's probably why I do better on that section, because I can just memorize a lot.
Yeah,
so I had like the material.
People like can score like 131, 132 on that section because they can just put in the content stuff. It's not going to ask you anything crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I have the only, like, last time I took it though, it was content, but sometimes they can give you a psych soc test that's like not content. It's more like a bio. It's weird.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so anyway, I have printed out. I like to read notes like on paper, like highlight and stuff. I printed out the 86-page psych soc doc. I have not done that in forever, so I just have good content knowledge for psych soc already. So I've been going. I got through half of it in a couple of hours. I've just been highlighting terms like sometimes it's like proactive versus retrospective interference, things like that. Most of the content I have down pretty solid.
Are you not a fan of Anki?
I'm not a fan of Anki, but I felt like I was doing like the miles down Anki deck for psych soc, and I got through it in a couple of days. I mean, maybe it helped. I just feel like it wasn't worth the improvement I was getting. It's like I got through all the biochem, and I feel like it got to the point where I was recognizing and memorizing things, but it wasn't carrying over to the exam.
Okay.
If I was done for a regular classroom setting, it would work. Like I can inward my note.
I would say that's going to be useful for psych soc because that's the section that's closest to how like a regular class is in terms of like learning the content, and we're going to test you on the content.
Yeah.
And it's just very like I remember when I would be very like burnt out for the test. I would take like a day or days off. But on the day off, I would just do some like Anki cards.
Okay.
I have the app on my phone, and I can just do a couple if I'm like waiting for the subway or.
Okay. I have the app too, and it definitely isn't. It's more enjoyable doing the Anki. Like it doesn't burn you out like questions does.
Yeah. And
at this point,
the things you don't know at a greater frequency. So
at this point, like I know how to modify the deck to just like, overload with questions, but like
make custom
at this point. Like, I'm just trying to get this point, like, to figure out at this point, I've got 3.5-ish weeks before my test. Like, what can I do to make the most use of my time? Like, for example, like, I know I suck at physics, but it typically isn't a huge part of the exam. I know the basics.
Wait, you have about 2.5 weeks.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, you're right. It's 20.
Yeah, like I could share with you like some like a spreadsheet if that helps, but like I would like think about like days until the test. So it seems like you have 18 days.
So I got through. I'm gonna be honest. I have sucked at the physics QPAC. That stuff was hard. Like.
Oh yeah, you don't have to really do those though.
You don't think so? Because a lot of these formulas I did not know that well. Like I was
old MCAT.
All I know is like last time I took MCAT, it wasn't as content heavy with some of the formulas, but there was stuff I didn't know.
Yeah.
But I know that's gonna be the case.
There are things though. So that question pack's there from like the old MCAT, and a lot of like concepts are no longer on the new MCAT. For instance, like I was like with a student yesterday who was going over like Kaplan material, and there was like rotational stuff. That's not on the new MCAT anymore. Like torque and centripetal force, that type of stuff isn't on it. But what's like an example of something?
Hold on, let me get my. I'm trying to remember where I wrote my notes down. I just wrote down some formulas that they had wrote questions over. One of them was like the. We go over later, but some of it was simple stuff. Like some of it was harmonics. I didn't know how to use some of those formulas, like L equals n lambda over 4. Like some of those different ones I did not use. Like I went through it, it wasn't too bad. Some of the ones for frequency I had learned that way. Like frequency is the speed of frequency is c over lambda equals hertz. Some of those I did. Some of those I was never asked to use that way when I took physics.
That's one that we've seen before. Like basically the velocity is equal to the wavelength over the frequency.
Yeah, there was one somewhere like energy.
I'm sorry, wavelength times frequency.
Yeah.
If you think about it, wavelength is going to have a unit of distance, and frequency is like a reciprocal of time. So it's just 1 over seconds. So when you multiply the two, you get meters per second. And it's only equal to c if it's light.
Yeah. There was one too, like energy equals velocity over v over. I'm sorry, not velocity. Yeah, energy is v over d. I hadn't seen that one before. Acceleration is dq over m.
Wait, v over d.
Yeah.
V is in frequency or v?
I think it's velocity. They said you could relate velocity over distance. I hadn't seen that before.
Velocity over distance would just be frequency though. Because velocity is meters per second and distance is meters. If you divide the two, you just get 1 over seconds, which is frequency. Okay. But sometimes they like to use a Greek symbol called nu, which looks like a V.
Yeah, it's possible. I just wrote it down. I mean, it said what the unit was, mine didn't, but yeah, just some of the stuff I'm not super familiar with. That's why I was doing it. But
yeah.
Most of the time, they don't like test that much strict knowledge. But yeah, I had a hard time with that. But are you saying do you think it wouldn't be the best use of my time to just go finish? I got through half of it, but I don't want to waste my time doing the QPACs either. I've done most of them before except for physics. I got through half of the biology section bank. Psych social is easy.
Section banks are more newer and geared towards the new MCAT. So those are important. The question packs are from the old one, and the only question packs that are important are the cars ones.
Okay, I'm halfway through all of those. I did all of the official guide passage questions, all of those.
Okay.
So I was definitely gonna finish these section banks. And I've got to get through all 4 of these MCAT tests. I had done the first one before, but I didn't review it.
Yeah.
So I might just take it again now that I'm feeling more confident, and then I'm gonna get through all of them. Because I'm gonna take one day off, so I can do it might be this week or next week. I'll do 2 tests. I'll do one on Wednesday and then one on Saturday, so I can get through all of them before and have time to review them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry for ranting. I'm trying to structure everything, just do the best I can. So I know on a good day, if I do everything right, anyways, review the document, get through the rest of that. I feel pretty go psych soc, cover anything I'm missing holes in, take flashcards, I'm ready to do if I miss things on exams, been keeping track of that. I think on a good day, 130 higher, psych soc, I can be good there.
Yeah, psych soc is definitely the easiest to make to maximize because it's so much content based. But
yeah. Cars I'm doing really well at. Sometimes I still miss one question per passage. Where I'm struggling with cars is I have a very hard time with art passages, and I have a very hard time with the philosophy, Achilles, the Greek stuff, just because I was never into that in high school. I didn't care. It's just hard for me to pay attention to, and sometimes I don't understand what they're saying. I've been flagging those types of passages to come back to.
We can work on some of those passages. It's good that you identified the specific types.
Definitely those types of passages.
Yeah, most people have trouble with those types of passages. So yeah, we can do those.
That's the only issue I'm having with cars. I think I've got my time. Sometimes I run 11, 12 minutes of passage, but I've definitely got the time much better. So my last
class, you're flagging the difficult ones.
Yeah, I was surprised I did really well in my last cars on the practice test. And then Chem Phys is still brutal for me. Sometimes I'm getting things wrong, second guessing myself, or just not really understanding how to get to it.
Okay.
Biochem still hit or miss. I'm just frustrated with biochem. I could be 124, I could be 128. It's just I feel like the frustration is not knowing what they're gonna throw at you. If they give me a bunch of crap I don't know.
Just kind of I don't want to sound cliche, but if you looked at the thing I try to teach 2 important lessons to like all my students. One is tolerance of uncertainty, and 2 is confidence in your own self-efficacy. So basically, like, if you don't know it, try to like breathe. It's gonna be okay. Because on the actual test, it's going to be like that. On the actual test, it's going to be, they're gonna throw things at you that you've never seen before, just because everyone who's pre-med is obsessed with studying. And how can you make a test that's going to be difficult for a pre-med who knows all of, like, his or her material, right? Yeah. So they're going, like, I've seen, so like on the actual test, I've seen like the first passage be like ridiculous. So that's when you skip around and stuff. And I've seen like a little bit more like physics than what you would see on the practice tests. But yeah, you can show me some stuff.
Yeah, I'll definitely do the strategy of the go to the discretes first and knock them out as fast as I can, flag heavily, and just come back. I mean, I flagged really heavily. The time I took it, I still got a 127 on psych social. I didn't really know that much, and I flagged like 35 questions, and I still got a 127, so I probably missed a lot. Like, I was not confident, so I don't want to waste time on it, because that's what happened last time. I got in cars, I was like, oh crap, what the heck? I honestly, God, could not comprehend it with the stress.
Yeah.
And I ran out of time, I had 4 passages left.
Yeah.
So.
Try, I don't know if like, well, again, like, sounds cliche, but like the breathing kind of thing.
Yeah.
You do that in karate, don't you? Like, isn't the, like, I know in Taekwondo they called it mukdo or something. Mukdo.
Yeah, we definitely focus on breathing patterns.
Yeah. You can utilize the things that you already know, like from your own unique experience, because like the test taking anxiety is the biggest, is like the biggest factor here, because
oh yeah, I definitely heard me bad last time. I know people who've taken this test multiple times, like we're getting like 515s and higher, and we're like the low 490s because their anxiety was so bad. Test day. I mean, that's where I've been for, and I know that I've been working on it. And like, it's just tough.
I voided my exam twice because I spent too long on like a CP question, and then I ran out of time without even answering like the last 2 passages in discretes, and then I'm just like, all right, voiding it. I've been there. And then when I retook my 518, I had a lot of anxiety for that, because it's very easy to score lower than that. So
like, I have a really hard time with it. I have bad test anxiety and ADHD, so it's been and when you're timed, like, whoa, I had all the time in the world in school, so it's definitely a lot of pressure. So I've been working on the timing, but your timing strategies have worked really good. And even if I miss stuff, at least I'm getting through in time, and I have 2 minutes to go back and check stuff, and it works. So I guess we can pick up, maybe let's go through one of those parse passages first, and we can pick up a little bit from the sample test we were going over last time.
Yep.
Let me find the questions. I flagged them. Let's see. I'll go ahead and share my screen with you.
Yeah, when I was retaking a 518, I had a lot of like anxiety, because I would have to get like almost every single question right, and if I don't, and I end up with like a 516, it looks bad. Like it would be better to not take it.
I have a bad issue with that. Like, I get so upset.
Yeah.
When I get something wrong, like when I'm doing cars, especially keeping the questions and answers on, so you see it, I'm like, dang it.
Yeah.
Why are you doing this? It's just frustrating, and you get so pissed off when you are between 2 answers and something about you sort of leans to one answer, and that's the answer, and you switch it. I've had such a hard time with that, because it's like, honestly, God, I don't know it, but I was kind of feeling like maybe going one way, and I'm like, well, maybe not, and I switched. That's kind of a really tough thing for me to break.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to see if I can find flagged questions.
Did they change this? It looks different.
This is the new ones. This is the cars diagnostic.
What? What the hell?
Yeah, they made what was called a parse diagnostic passages, and they're new passages.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Actually, let me not do flag because I won't see all the questions. Hold on. Yeah, it's that. See, like art history, I do really bad at. I'll try to find that passage.
And I see history there, but
I have done really well on some history passages. I don't know about that one.
Yeah, that might be a fluke. But generally speaking, like philosophy, where I don't even see it here.
I might have not taken one yet. I don't see it.
Okay, yeah.
So it's cool. I'm gonna mute this real quick and I'll find the questions.
You can hear me fine, right? Because I'm using the microphone that's on my webcam.
I don't know how loud it is. This is like Zoom conference and stuff with dogs now. Like hear how.
Yeah, my regular mic. This is what happened to the cable for it. You see that? So yeah, I'm using the mic that's on my webcam.
Just go to mute. This passage was pretty rough. I think this is the one I got everything pretty much wrong. Might be another one. That one I did bad on. There was one I did really bad yesterday.
Oh, which one are you talking about? That one about opera?
This one I did really. This one, there's two. There's one on Achilles. This one I did really bad on. What type of passage was this? Social history of art. Here we go. I did really bad on this passage, and I had a hard time reading it and understanding it in a reasonable time frame. I typically read in about 3 to 3.5 minutes, which I think is reasonable for cars. I'll stop and kind of reread a sentence if I don't get it.
Yeah.
This just was boring. I didn't really understand. I made a massive interpretation issue on this sentence, but we can go through the whole passage if you want, like however you want to do it. And I can talk you through some things I didn't understand, mistakes that I made, I guess.
Okay. So let's see. The most remarkable thing about prehistoric naturalism is not that it is older than the geometric style, which makes so much more of a primitive impression, but that it already reveals all the typical phases of development through which art has passed in modern times, and is not, in any sense, the merely instinctive, static phenomenon that scholars obsessed with geometric and rigorously formal art declare it to be. Okay, there's a lot of weird terms here, but I think the point of this paragraph is saying that prehistoric art has progressed into different phases that art in modern day has also progressed through, and that it's not static.
Yeah.
So
the first time I read through it, I didn't pick that part up as well. So the first time I read through it, I got hung up on prehistoric naturalism is not that it is older than geometric style. I got stuck on that. Like I was like, oh, okay, which wasn't one of the questions, but and then I was like, it's not the static phenomenon that scholars obsessed with. Geometric rigor.
You did. Yeah.
I guess I got stuck with I wasn't paying so much attention to the middle part. I mean, I could have reread it when I went back for this question. We'll get to later, but I didn't. I think I got a little bit hung up on the wording. I was like, okay, well, I'll pick up with later on, and I didn't get that middle part about the phases through time, modern time.
Yeah. So
I kind of missed that.
Yeah. So don't worry too much about, remember, like these like particular details and stuff. Just take, like, I call it like caveman speech. Like, get it, like do like a summary of it with like this, like prehistoric Um, where does it say progression? I thought I saw something like that, but whatever. Like I would say like prehistoric um, phases development, not static. So you did a good job by highlighting not and
I missed right
static
there. I
phenomenon.
probably should have highlighted that. Yeah.
Yeah, but what you have so far is good because what you have highlighted is saying that prehistoric naturalism is not a static phenomenon. So if it's not static, it has to be dynamic, right? Meaning that it changes.
True. Yeah. True.
Okay.
Another issue I had on, well, just in general on cars now, I'm getting to the point where I don't even have to refer back very much. I'm getting a lot of questions right. Maybe that means my comprehension's gotten a lot better.
Yes, it does.
Yeah. All right, we can move on.
Yeah. And about that sentence, like I can, let's see, I can just say it now. Like it's saying that, the remarkable thing about prehistoric naturalism isn't that it's older than the geometric style, which makes it more primitive because it's older. But the most remarkable thing is that it's gone through all the phases of development. So that's what that sentence means. Like you're gonna see people write like this. That's gonna make it hard because it's saying like a lot of things in between, but it's saying like the most remarkable thing about this type of prehistoric art isn't that it's older than the geometric style, which makes it even more primitive, but that it's gone through all the phases of development. That's the remarkable part. So like if you like just are able to do the most remarkable thing and get rid of the stuff in between, like not that it's older, that makes it more primitive, and just connect it to that it already reveals all the typical phases of development. So like the most remarkable thing about prehistoric naturalism is that it already reveals all the typical phases of development. Like that's the sentence. The things in between are just like additional kind of information. But all right, so let's see. The next paragraph, there are no parallels whatsoever between this prehistoric art and child art. Children's drawings are rationalistic, not sensory. They show what the child and the adult artist know, not what they actually see. They give a theoretically synthetic, not an optically organic picture of the image. So from that, it's saying that prehistoric art is based on the senses, like what they actually see, whereas children's art or drawings are based on what they think something looks like. So like let's say you see like a cave painting of like a gazelle, it's based on them seeing a gazelle and then drawing it, whereas a child drawing a gazelle is kind of like imagining what it looks like and then drawing it.
Okay.
So that's what I take away from that. So I would maybe.
And the first time I read through that, I really kind of focused on this whole rationalistic, non-sensory, and then what they know. And I didn't highlight anything just because I knew. All right, I kind of in my brain, I'm like, okay, well, this is where they talk about the children example. So I had a feeling that might be a question. So I knew where it was, and it was short. So I just
that's good. It's good to know where it was. What I would highlight here is that I would highlight prehistoric, sensory, and children's art. I wouldn't highlight rationalistic because that kind of makes it's like, what do you mean by rationalistic? Maybe like children's art is just not what they see. So all right, maybe I would do this. I would highlight prehistoric art, and I would highlight actually see, or you can highlight child art and highlight not and then highlight see, because the basic thing to take away from that paragraph is that children's art isn't based on what they see, but prehistoric art is based on what they see.
Okay.
So just to boil it down, right? You want to boil everything down. You don't want any, like, extraneous information for your first read through.
Also, sometimes I'm noticing I kind of half-ass highlighted this passage. I've noticed that I pay more attention sometimes when I'm not highlighting, which seems weird.
Oh, yeah. No, that
I don't know when you
because when
I notice it breaks up the paragraph, and sometimes I highlight as I'm going through it, and it stops the natural flow of reading.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I do highlight. I guess maybe it might be better to try just going through it first and then highlighting back after. I just don't want to waste my time.
That's what
because it slows me down too.
Yeah, that's what I do. I read it first, like the paragraph, and I highlight it, doing that fast technique of just double clicking on it, Alt-H, right? But I only highlight after I've read it. Like, after I've read the paragraph, right? If you highlight as you're reading, which a lot of people like to do, I wouldn't,
My car's growing up when I quit doing that.
Yeah, because it interrupts, like, you don't want anything interrupting your comprehension. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. The peculiar thing about the naturalistic drawings of the Old Stone Age is, on the other hand, that they give the visual impression in such a direct, unmixed form, free from all intellectual trimmings or restrictions. The painters of the Paleolithic Age were still able to see delicate shades with the naked eye that modern people are able to discover only with the help of complicated scientific instruments. I think you're good on this because it's, I would maybe highlight just, like, Stone Age and direct. Like, I don't highlight that much because I already, like, kind of know in my head what it's kind of trying to say.
Yeah, that's why I kind of wasn't highlighting it. I didn't feel like there was a lot of main ideas. I did highlight this, and I knew that was near it, so that's why I didn't highlight that. And the only reason I highlighted this, I didn't think it was important. But I was thinking we could ask. The reason I highlighted that is because I thought, well, they might ask me a question about, because I've seen questions before that asked you about the way they drew or how things are different from others. That's kind of why I highlighted that, just because I wanted to know that.
You highlighted something good. Like, I would highlight something like that too, because it's basically saying that that these prehistoric artists basically are able to see things with their naked eye, which we're not able to do. We need, like, scientific instruments to do. And and a lot of times it's easier to just highlight one of the things instead of like let's say, like, A does B and C does D. Instead of highlighting A, B, C, and D, you can just highlight A and B, and if it's not that, it would have to be C and D, right?
Yeah, for sure. And you just get to the point where you're highlighting too much, and it doesn't help you when you try to go back.
Yeah, but, like, for instance, you highlighted Paleolithic Age can see things with the naked eye, and you didn't highlight modern people need complicated scientific instruments, which is good because all you need to highlight is that Paleolithic people can see with the naked eye, because that means that if they're not Paleolithic, they can't see it with the naked eye. So you don't have to highlight both parts. You can highlight one, and if it's not that, it has to be the other. So,
cool.
So far, good with the highlighting. All right. What was the purpose behind this art? Was it the expression of a joy of life insistent on being recorded and repeated, or the satisfaction of the play instinct and delight in embellishment? Was it the fruit of leisure, or had it some definite practical purpose? So these are, like, lots of questions that we don't know the answer to, so I wouldn't really highlight anything yet, but let's see.
We're getting lazy right here. I was kind of like, okay, question.
Yeah, because the leisure thing is just one of the questions. Like, we're trying to see, like, what the purpose of the art is, right? So, okay, have we to see in it a plaything or a tool in the struggle for a livelihood? We know that it was the art of primitive hunters living on an unproductive, parasitic economic level, who had to gather or capture their food rather than produce it themselves, who to all appearances still lived at the age of primitive individualism in unstable, almost entirely unorganized social patterns, in small isolated hordes, and who believed in no gods, in no world, and life beyond the death. Okay, there's no answers here. There's no answers here. I'm just gonna. I would just highlight like maybe like what is the purpose behind the art, or maybe nothing at all, because it's saying what's the purpose behind this art, and then the questions after are like guesses, and then afterwards it tells you things, but it doesn't tell you the answer of what the purpose behind the art is. Maybe it will in the next paragraph.
It might have been helpful if I had highlighted primitive hunters here, because it described them a lot, like in case there was a constant, like in the text question, but I just kind of...
But I think you know that, right? Just from like the first, like, you know, paragraph. Primitive, right? They're hunter-gatherers and stuff, right?
Yeah.
You know, like the cave paintings at the Lascaux or whatever, you've seen like that? Or whatever?
Vaguely.
Okay.
I don't follow art stuff too much.
I don't know. You see it like all the time, because it's like really old like paintings. I'll like send you something like after. And I don't know. Like what helps me, which isn't gonna like transfer to everyone, is like I kind of like can trick myself to be interested in anything. But I'm interested in a lot of things. But anyway, let's see. Let's go back. Okay. In this age of purely practical life, everything obviously still turned around the bare earning of a livelihood, and there's nothing to justify us. I don't know if I would highlight that, but us in assuming that art served any other purpose than a means to the procuring of food. All the indications point rather to the fact that it was the instrument of a magical technique, and as such had a thoroughly pragmatic function aimed entirely at direct economic objectives. It was a technique without mystery, a matter-of-fact procedure, the objective application of methods that had as little to do with mysticism and esotericism as when we set mousetraps, manure the ground, or take a drug. Okay, so from this I see that maybe art was like a way for them like to... Maybe like they thought it was like a way, like some magical way for them to improve their hunting if they drew it, made art of it.
This is where the passage really started to lose me, and I was very bored very quickly. And I was like, okay, well, I didn't really get it that well. I was like, okay, we're talking about this and this is
so here's where I see this, right? So they say all the indications. Show me where that is. All the indications. Yeah. So like all the indications point rather to the fact that it was the instrument of a magical technique, and it had a pragmatic, practical function, which is basically for economic objectives, which is basically like to be able to hunt like more, get better yields like that, right? So
I figured that part out through some of the questions later.
Yeah,
but I was kind of reading the first read through. I was kind of like, and I was kind of like, well, I didn't go back and read through it again because I figured I might have to come back to it, so I kind of went going. But the reason I highlighted this right here is because I knew he was making an opinion that his lingua question was going to come up. I think I highlighted that because.
Okay, I can see.
I was confused. This was kind of I'll tell you now, I got a question wrong with this sentence.
Yeah.
I misunderstand, so it was nothing to justify us in assuming art served any other purpose than the means of procuring food. And I guess what he means by that, we can't assume that it serves any other purpose than the procuring of food. Is that what they were saying? There's no other reason?
Yeah.
I guess I got a little confused because it kind of, the way it was worded, you had to think through twice. Like, there's, we'll get to the question later, but that sentence stuck out to me, but
Yeah, because basically, like in the previous paragraph where he says, what's the purpose behind this art? Is it this? Is it this? Is it this? Is it this? And then in this paragraph, it's saying, there's nothing to justify that it's any of those things besides just, like, the practical means of getting more whatever. Okay. The pictures were part of the technical apparatus of this magic. So in that paragraph, I would highlight basically like instrument, magical, and procuring food.
Okay.
So So like with the way I highlight, the order doesn't really matter, but it just like I'm equating things. I'm just saying like art, basically its function is this magical thing that aids in the procuring of food. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah.
Like, maybe like they think like an artist has a talent of drawing, and I'll show you like the last cow like paintings because they're really good. So they probably think this person has a magical talent, and if he draws gazelles and stuff, it's gonna help the gazelle gods or something, and it's gonna help us catch more gazelles, kind of like that.
Yeah.
All right. So then they elaborate on the reason I went back to that was because they elaborate on the magic aspect of it in that last paragraph. So the pictures were part of the technical apparatus of this magic. They were the trap into which the game had to go, or rather, they were the trap with the already captured animal. For the picture was both a representation and the things being and the things. Wait. For the picture was both representation and the things represented, both wish and wish fulfillment at one and the same time.
That kind of got me a little bit lost. Like I was like, what? That's I knew this was going to come up. I knew, and I could get to the point where I could pick up where they're going to ask questions about.
Yeah, that's good.
Because I kept getting lost about the art and the people behind it, polyethnic, whatever. I just kept getting like a little overwhelmed, but like I was just like stuck on the sense, both representation and things represented. Like they saying, I guess they're referring to like what they were doing as far as the hunters, like with the animal. The picture.
Yeah, so the reason when I was reading that, I went back and read it again with a different intonation is because the things represented are both wish and wish fulfillment. So like, let's say you draw a gazelle, it is a picture of what it represents, which is like a gazelle that like exists that you can capture and eat, but it also represents like that's like the wish aspect of it, and then the wish fulfillment aspect of it, which means that if you draw it, it means that you're going to capture it in real life, kind of.
Okay.
It's like wish is like I'm drawing a gazelle because I want to eat gazelle and I want to capture gazelle and hunt gazelle. That's the wish part. And then the wish fulfillment is like the act of drawing it contributes to you actually capturing it.
Okay.
Like wish fulfillment is like have you ever heard of that term, like wish fulfillment? It's so like it's like a lot of people like watch like I don't know, like Batman or something, because for them it's like wish fulfillment. Like it's like they want to be like a strong, intelligent like kind of character who knows how to fight, and watching Batman, it's like they get to like kind of insert themselves, and it's a wish, their wishes are being fulfilled, kind of.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, I sort of figured that out. I didn't think about it, but yeah. Okay.
All right. Let's see. The Paleolithic hunter and painter felt in possession of the thing itself in the picture, felt power over the object in the portrayal of the object. The hunter believed the real animal actually suffered the killing of the animal portrayed in the picture. Okay. So like it's like if you draw it, like it'll happen, kind of.
Yeah.
The pictorial representation was nothing but the anticipation of the desired effect. The real event had inevitably to follow the magical sample action, or rather to be already contained within it, as both were separated from each other merely by the supposedly unreal medium of space and time. All right, so like, things like this are written in very, very weird ways that can confuse you, but you can still get the main idea, which is, the act of painting it is like an act of capturing it. So basically the entire passage starts off by saying, primitive, paintings and stuff, like what's their purpose, and then it goes into thinking like, yeah, the purpose is very pragmatic. It's like the feeling of killing, the animal and stuff.
Yeah, and I think I was off to a good start. I think I got a little lazy reading through the end. I got a little hung up here, and I think I kind of quit highlighting, which I still feel like I picked up most of it. Like, even if I didn't understand this part here,
yeah,
part right here basically kind of told you everything you need to know.
Yeah,
and I got the gist of through there.
Yeah,
so I didn't highlight, but
that's good. Usually, like by the end of the passage, the author will like reveal, whatever.
Yeah, kind of their thesis and summarize.
Yeah, what they actually think, like their thesis, right? Okay, so let's see. The author implies that other experts disagree with the idea that prehistoric naturalism. Okay, let's see. This is like in the first paragraph.
Yeah, so when I went through this, I read the questions first, and I had a feeling I needed to go back.
Yeah, I would say for cars.
I was right. I did go back here.
Yeah,
but I was kind of rushing a bit. I was not feeling it that day with cars. But anyway, I knew that it wasn't produced by primitive hunters without even looking back. Like, I just knew that was a false statement. And
wait, can I ask something? Did you say that you read the questions before reading the passage?
I didn't go back to it. Yeah.
But you read the passage first.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I didn't refer back to this. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I went through it. And I was like to try to eliminate because I had already read it. And I was like, I felt pretty fresh. So I knew this wasn't true because it didn't state that anywhere.
Yeah, because they're saying what do experts disagree with, right? And like you're gonna look for a word like experts, and I see you highlighted scholars, so that's what they're talking about. And like the thing that in the first paragraph they're talking about is that prehistoric paintings went through these progressions or phases like modern art did, but most scholars or experts, right, think that it was more static, that it didn't undergo phase changes.
Yeah. And so I knew D was the opposite of what was stated, like that disagreed with that.
Oh, yeah, so okay.
Geometric style representation. I knew that was false like 5 seconds.
So like D is a true statement, B is a true statement, but like where you have to see like what do they disagree with. And
so I got stuck with like I was trying to remember with the experts. I think I went up.
Mm-hmm.
And I was, I guess I just got lost. I think this came back to me missing the context between this, and I was trying to look and read around it, and I was kind of like lost. So I think it was me just missing part of the comprehension of paragraph 1.
Yeah.
I didn't see anything about. I think I didn't see anything about phases.
Oh yeah.
And it was I see it now, but I think I don't know. I guess I wasn't paying attention. I don't know.
Well, there's a lot of words and things stated.
I think I know why now, because it said disagree with the idea of prehistoric naturalism, and I didn't think they could disagree. I think I was thinking disagree with the phases, like they would disagree that it went through the phases.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I didn't pick that.
Like when we went over that paragraph, like for the first time, remember I was saying like the main takeaway was that like the remarkable thing is that it went through phases. It's dynamic. It's not static, right? But the scholars, the experts and stuff, they believe that it was static, that it didn't change.
And I think I'm remembering now, the satisfied and instinctive need for playful self-expression. I was thinking in my head that the reason they were doing this may be totally related, but I was thinking like, it was more like art for function or whatever to them because of what they're talking about down here, about the picture or the animal, whatever. Like I wasn't thinking that. I guess I wasn't thinking that experts would think they were doing it for any other reason. There was no other. There wasn't this purpose of it just being art for art.
All right, so let's try this. So look for the word instinct or instinctive in the passage. And remember, try to use your eyes. Like, don't like read it, but just look for like the word. Okay. So that's saying not in any sense the merely instinctive. Do you see it anywhere else? Maybe, how about this? Look for the word play or playful. You're close. Maybe a little higher. Yeah. So that's where they talk about the play instinct, right? And that's just one of the questions. Like when you were saying, what is the purpose of this art? Is it this? Is it that? Is it that? But like, it's none of those things. So no one really believes that. But like that, like it's the same thing that we that we did before, where we look for the words in the passage. So you have satisfaction there, satisfied. C says satisfied. Instinctive, you have instinct right there. Playful, you have the play thing right there, right?
I guess because I was thinking the author said that it was none of these things, but I thought that he had a different viewpoint than the experts. That's why I thought that wasn't true.
Yeah.
They would disagree. That's why I went with that so quickly.
Yeah.
Because I think I had a hard time identifying the whole phase situation.
Yeah. So for this,
I think I could read this part over again, but
I would do this same tactic that we were doing, like look for a word in the question stem and or words in the choices and look for them in the passage. And so like, first I looked at experts and then I looked at scholars, and that's where they mention it. Because if experts or scholars,
not in any sense the merely instinctive. There's satisfied and instinctive need. So I thought that wasn't true. Do you know what I'm saying? Like I was getting the sense that this was not true.
Yeah. So I would just like first look for like experts and scholars, and then you'd know that it's over there. And then C, look for playful, play stuff, and that's in that other paragraph.
So does this have, so I guess this part here had nothing. I guess because I thought it was from the first paragraph, and this had nothing to do. This didn't help you get to the answer.
It's more like a red herring or something that makes you like lean in a different like sets you down the wrong path. Because the only word in common there is instinctive, but they're saying that it's an instinctive, like, static phenomenon, right? Of just drawing something. It doesn't say that it's an instinctive need for play or self-expression, right?
Yeah, like this is the type of question that gets me kind of like, like I was very quick, like this is gone, I'm like, oh crap, which one? I'm still kind of like sitting on that, like not. There were words that led me to pick this one, and I guess like I could not. I'm still having a hard time justifying either choice. With C especially, I think I would have gotten A had I read the sentence here.
Yeah,
but that was. I guess I had a hard time differentiating what the experts thought versus what he thought. I thought he was saying it didn't do this, so the experts would disagree.
Yeah.
Like it's like counter arguments. That's what I was kind of feeling.
Yeah.
The experts disagree with the idea that prehistoric naturalism underwent phases similar to those. I guess I had a hard time finding that. I understand that. So it said here about prehistoric naturalism is not that it is older than the geometric style.
Yeah, I would say like forget about all that stuff in the middle and just connect. The most remarkable thing about prehistoric naturalism is that it already reveals all the typical phases of development through which art has passed in modern times, and is not in any sense the merely instinctive, static phenomenon that scholars obsessed with.
Okay, right there. So not It's not the static phenomenon scholars are obsessed with.
Yeah, so scholars will say that it is instinctive. However, they're not saying that it's an instinctive need for playful self-expression. Because anything can be instinctive, right? Like the scholars are saying that it's instinctive static phenomenon, which doesn't have any like progression or phases.
Oh, I get it. So they're saying it wasn't. I just have sometimes I have a hard time following the train of thought when they bring in the argument with the way they write the wording.
Like, yeah, that's why I was like, forget like where it says is not older than the geometric style, which makes it so much of a primitive. Like, forget that. Like, I know right away, like, I guess from like doing so many of these, that like geometric style, like these like synthetic, optically organic, like they are like not important. Like the overall thing that they're saying in paragraph 1 is that it has phases, and most scholars or experts disagree with that, and they think it's static.
Yeah, I should have focused on that. I was focused on instinctive.
Yeah.
That threw me off.
That's why when I told you to like look for instinctive, I was like, do you see it anywhere else, or do you see playful anywhere? Because, you know, instinct could be anything, right? It can be an instinctive need to, you know, I don't know, throw paint.
I guess I probably should have noticed, like, I had a feeling it was going to refer back to this. I guess, I mean, this was later, but usually it would be in the same, like, area, because this is where they talk about the scholars obsessed. It just threw me, it kind of threw me for a loop of where to look, and I ended up not.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I think I kind of understand that. That was a situation where I kind of got stuck. Yeah. All right.
Yeah, like they're going to be written in ways that make it confusing, and you know your task is to take all that fluff and boil it down to like its most simplest kind of terms. I call it caveman speech, and it's funny because this is about cavemen, but yeah, like just the basically I can summarize, like if you're try to like summarize the paragraph in like or the passage in like 1 or 2 words, I can summarize it by saying that caveman art is made just to help them hunt. Right? Yeah, so like see if you can boil something down like that. All right. What's do you like understand this one or?
Yeah.
Oh, the characteristics of children's art. Yeah. So
yeah, I got that one right because I highlighted.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was right here. I didn't even highlight anything.
Let me ask you this: what if it says the author suggests the characteristic of prehistoric art is that? So just from what we took away from it, right? Which is they see it.
Yeah, I knew. Well, I thought that it wasn't an observation because they know.
Yeah,
it's not that what they actually
So
see.
if they're asking for
rationalistic, I knew rationalistic meant they were reasoning. That's how I paid attention to that. And then I knew knowledge, like understanding.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I knew to go for that right away.
Yeah, so if they asked for prehistoric art, what would be the answer?
I mean, it would have been the opposite. So the children's was rationalistic or sensory.
Yep.
So it would have been...
Well, children would be not sensory, right? Right?
Yeah, like, I wouldn't have thought of it that way without the question.
Well, like, because
the children's drawing are rationalistic, they're not sensory, so it would have been the opposite. It would have been more...
Yeah, so sensory just means, you're using your senses, like your eyes.
Yeah, so they would. It would have been the opposite. They wouldn't have used it. Would have been based more off their, like, it's not what they actually see. They can kind of feel it and understand it. I guess it's more like intuitive, and versus the kids more like, oh, you see this. Like,
but the prehistoric ones, they would see it though, right?
I don't know, Shane. I can't do it like that.
Wait, all right.
I have a question.
Let's check it out. So they say children's drawings are whatever rationalistic means, not sensory, right? They show what the child and adult artists know, not what they actually see, right? So that means that prehistoric art is sensory, and it is what they actually see. Because they're using their senses, they're using their eyes. So if this question said, like, what characteristic of prehistoric art, it would be B. It would say it reveals the prehistoric person's observation, what they see, right? All right, whatever. But you got it right, so that's good.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I think I was fine on some of these. I slipped up, I think. I didn't do as bad as I missed 3, I think. No, I missed 4. I did pretty bad. Some of these are longer. These were 7 questions.
Oh, damn. Yeah. All right.
Yeah, these ones, a lot of these are 7. All right, I got this one wrong.
To a modern way of thinking, the author's discussion of the purpose of prehistoric art appears contrary to the assertion that prehistoric art was. Okay.
Yeah, this is another example. Like, I hate it when they're like, this is because like cause correlation, or like this is this opinion contrary. Like, I know that means like this opposite assertion of what but I had a hard time with that. So. The final paragraph, that's getting into all this crap I didn't understand in here.
Yeah, and it has stuff from the previous paragraph as well, because it's saying, like, what does the author say in the final paragraph that is contrary to something that he said before in the passage, which I see.
Up here, they talked about the mysticism and esotericism.
Yeah, and right before
I didn't go back to that because they said final paragraph, so I didn't go back to that. And I would, had I not gone back and read that sentence, I would have picked that. I just ignored it.
Yeah.
And
so right before what you selected right there, see what it says, like right before that. See where it says it was a technique without mystery. Like right underneath, like where your cursor is.
Hold on.
Yep. Yeah, like right after that.
Yeah, I didn't see that the first time I read it. Okay.
Yeah, so in that paragraph, he says that it's a technique without mystery, right? And then in the final paragraph, what basically, what does he say, right?
Yeah, I had a hard time like pinning this one down.
Yeah, so he says both were separated from each other merely by the supposedly unreal medium of space and time. And that's pretty, like, it's kind of talking more about it being like this magical kind of mystery thing, because it's the unreal medium of space and time, right? Like they're drawing it and anticipating like capturing or killing that animal as they draw the killing of the animal. So yeah.
To be honest, like I really didn't understand
hard one.
Like I didn't really understand this question very well. Like so, to a modern way of thinking, the author's discussion of the purpose of prehistoric art is contrary to the assertion that prehistoric art. I just had a hard time following that very long question and breaking it down.
Yeah,
like, I understand they're saying he said something that countered. They're saying he countered. He said something contrary to what he had said earlier, and I had a hard time hunting for that and figuring that out.
Yeah,
like
they make it harder by saying to a modern way of thinking. Like I would like cross that out almost, like, and just
I ignored that part.
All right, yeah.
I read through the answers first. I'm like, okay, well, it did mention something like those words. I did not see anything about mystery other than up here, so I kind of ignored that for now. I didn't like eliminate it, and I went the art in front of people who had to capture their food. I didn't think there was anything contradictory about that statement because I don't. That was pretty much agreement. It's just these are the people, the prehistoric art, like why? I didn't think that didn't contradict anything. A weapon in the struggle for livelihood. I didn't remember learning anything in the passage that discussed that point of view. Maybe there was something about weapon in here. I don't remember anything about that.
Do you see though where in the passage they say both representation and the thing represented?
Yeah, down here, right?
Yeah.
I kept going back to that over and over again.
Yeah.
And I was running out of time. I was trying to push myself to go fast like normal.
Yeah.
And I was just like, okay, I'm between these two. I didn't see anything about this. So that's just why I don't want to say I gave up. I'm just kind of like, I'm just going to have to keep on. Because I read what was contrary. I really did not fully understand both of these. Like, because it said here, they were, let me go back. They were the trap with the already captured animal. For the picture was the representation the thing represented. Both wish and wish fulfillment at the same time.
Yeah.
So I just had a hard time understanding which one was contradictory to what he said earlier. And I didn't understand how that gave away a technique without mystery exactly.
So okay, what to take away from the question is, because they should have said maybe something like contrary to an assertion that the author made, because then you would know that what does he say in the final paragraph that is contradicting something that he said before the final paragraph.
And I think I started getting bored here and just not understanding. This was a dense read through. Like I kind of got to the point here, and I kind of ignored this because it was a technique without mystery, a matter of fact procedure. Oh, it says methods that had as little to do with mysticism and esotericism as when we set mouse. I didn't really understand what he was saying there. Is he just saying that it wasn't? It had little to do with mysticism, like it wasn't magic.
Yeah.
So what he was saying there was it basically wasn't this, and here he said he suggested that the pictures were part of a type of labyrinth of this magic, they were the trick. I just didn't pick that the first time I read it, so I didn't really understand the contradiction, so I just went with A.
Yeah.
I guess this was wrong because
it's in that same paragraph.
I guess he didn't contradict that statement previously at all. I mean,
yeah. Like the way I would do this is just because like the hard thing to take away from what they're asking is that this is an assertion that the author makes, because it says to the assertion, which could be any of those choices. But like if you take away that it's contrary to an assertion that he made, then the answer would have to be not in the final paragraph.
You really though had to go back and reread this part about where it said not to do with.
Well, yeah. I basically, if I looked at A and B, I would look at where. I would basically look for whichever choice was not in the final paragraph. Because he's saying like, in the question they say what in the final paragraph is contrary to something else, right?
Well, I couldn't. I think I was looking for what was in it.
Yeah.
It's just the question didn't make a lot of sense, and I don't know. This was kind of a tough question for me. Yeah, I kind of see where I could have done better with that. Maybe paid a little more attention, went back more.
Yeah,
and this one I probably would have to spend more time. But on a real thing, this is something I just have to guess and move on, which is kind of what I did. I'm just a little frustrated. I'm usually good. I got rid of those, and I could reason why these weren't true, and then I get stuck there, and it makes me mad.
It's okay. You kind of like you get it now, and I want to see like what they're like. Let me see like yeah. I want to see if they talk about the medium of space and time and stuff.
Which one did you do for C?
Wait, this is a different.
Yeah, well, the wrong question.
I
think I went too far forward. Here we go. Sorry.
Okay. Let's see.
A really long explanation.
All right, whatever.
That's why I'm frustrated with them. It's like, who's writing these passages? It's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
And in fact, on the first, they give you an example of somebody like who walks through a passage, and like there's audio you listen to, and she highlights like 2 words.
Wait, what is it?
On the CARS diagnostic, the first like 10 questions, they have some PhD from somewhere in California who goes through the passages, and she highlights like 2 words and just like simply explains it and makes it easy. And it was one of the easier passages anyway, but I'm like, I paid all this money for these resources, the best you can offer, like
that someone else is just doing it like magically.
It was stupid. Like it wasn't that helpful. I was like, oh my god, and they give a lot. Like this is ridiculous.
Yeah. I would just, the takeaway for this is just like what is not in the final paragraph that is contrary to the stuff that he says. I wouldn't even like the stuff that they wrote. I think that's like over complicating it. But I think that what the final paragraph is saying is that they're doing some magic. They're doing some mysticism, some esoteric stuff. Because it basically is like magic. Like you're going to draw...
I guess I didn't think of it as literal magic, though, when I first read their ads. I thought they were just kind of like talking. Like I didn't really think of magic. I thought he was just being like casual, like almost like facetious. Like I didn't think he was... That's why I didn't think. I thought he wasn't really actually literally magic.
Yeah,
that's why I'm
everything in the paragraph before said that it was just purely practical, and then in the final paragraph it says that it's not practical. It says that it's like if you draw it, it'll like come, like it'll come true.
Yeah, I totally see that. I totally see that now, but it's really annoying how they were like, and then you have to go back.
Yeah.
All right. This is exactly the kind of questions that like irritate me. All right. I see where it could have done better there. Yeah. This question.
Try to practice that thing where you like look for the word in the passage and stuff. Like that's gonna be hard, but it's definitely worth it. All right. So, assume that Paleolithic cave paintings have recently been discovered at numerous sites, and all of them depict mountains, lakes, and rivers. Okay. So these are things that you can't kill. So it's gonna like mess with the guy's theory, right? That when you draw something, it aids in you killing it, and therefore you get more food and stuff. So this thing is gonna be like it's gonna like it's like evidence to the contrary of what the dude's saying. Like,
I think this just kind of led me to that because I was like, oh, okay, well, these are all natural sites that animals would be at, so I thought it was related to what they were paint.
So
maybe that was probably a little bit too much of an assumption. Like here they weaken it by showing the painters.
These are true statements, right? But the true part, like, it's true that, yes, it'll show that Paleolithic artists painted a variety of things. That's true, but does that support it or not?
I didn't understand C though. Well, first I'll go B. They weaken it by showing that the painters probably believe that these objects have spiritual powers. We didn't really get into spirituality and also just the way that was word probably. I think that was a good question, so I marked that.
Yeah.
They do not affect it because it applies only to pictures of animals. Well, I knew that wasn't true. It applied to other things as well. So I was between A and C. C, they disprove it by showing that some artists could not have had the motive.
Yeah.
I didn't understand that answer choice. Like it didn't make no sense to me. That's why I didn't understand exactly what they meant by that or where to find that passage.
Oh yeah, that's in the last.
Because it was outside. Well, it was outside the. I did not go back because it was outside the. This was a outside the text question, I think, right?
Well, that doesn't mean that you
can't
benefit from. Yeah, because in the last paragraph, it tells you what the motive is, right?
Yeah, I don't think I'm up for that. So maybe
it says that the motive is that, if you want to capture or kill an animal, you draw it, and if you draw it, it'll happen.
Okay, well, I got that out of it, but I wasn't able to.
So then that's basically saying the point of the art is to draw something that you want to kill in real life. So if that's the only reason for drawing this stuff, because that's what the author's saying. The author's saying the only reason they're doing it is because they think that it will help them, like, kill an animal in real life. If that's the only reason, then mountains and lakes and rivers, you're not gonna like kill them and eat them.
I got it now. Yeah, I didn't take that from. I didn't understand that from this. I think I just wasn't paying enough attention to disprove it. Well, this is my ADHD. Percentile. They disprove it by showing that some artists could have the motive. So I get it. The whole point of them painting it was they painted the animal because that was like what they would do. It would actually happen. They would kill it as part of their hunting practices.
Yeah, that's what this guy is saying.
Lakes isn't going to make anything happen.
Because if they saw that, right, that prehistoric dudes, like, whatever, drew mountains, lakes, and rivers, then they would say, hey, I don't think your theory is true, that they're only doing it to, kill, like, the animal in real life.
Yeah.
Like, that's evidence to the contrary. Yeah.
See, this is where my brain ADD went. I was actually thinking I read that question. No, I think I was thinking I read that question. I was like, oh, well, if you drew, they would want to, like, I was thinking, like, if there was a drought or something, they might want to water because the animals need.
Yeah. No, I mean,
my brain went way too far with that. I had to, like,
it's like, I can see that. Like, if
I thought it was supposed to like, you would want that to happen. Like, they would want things for the animals. I think I went a little bit way outside that.
Yeah. But I can see what you're talking about.
I just didn't think it would. I didn't think that would just prove anything necessarily. I get it now the way you worded it was better.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I just thought, oh, well, that supports, their hunting practices. They need these things, so maybe they would draw. Like certain people back then had these superstitious religious things.
Yeah.
I went way outside that. But it was reasoning beyond the sex question. That was my reasoning.
I would say, like, if A said something like this, that then it would be in support. Like, if they said something like Paleolithic artists would paint like exactly what you said, like a drought, or if they're if prehistoric Paleolithic artists painted rivers and lakes when they experienced a drought or something, because then it would still be in line with the motive of you draw it and it will happen. But since the choice is just saying that they painted a variety of things and it doesn't have that motive of if you draw it, it will happen, that is what makes it not, like, in line with what the author is saying.
I'm really trying hard not to disagree with them because I think it was a shitty answers, both of them, but it's like, I didn't feel it was strong enough to just completely disprove it. They drew these other things because it was kind of,
they should say weaken.
It's not, whoever wrote these questions, this question, the last question, hopefully they're writing the new ones.
Yeah, they should have said weaken. They don't have to say disprove, right? But I guess they do say
that was so strong. That's another reason I think I know that was bad, like test taking, but usually I thought that was a little. I guess both support and disprove were strong. But I feel like that was really strongly against. I didn't think this was strong enough.
Support and weaken are like support and weaken are like not that strong. But if it's a prove and disprove, it is strong. So I don't like that part. I'm with you there. But it does say some artists could not have had the motive. So that kind of like weakens it a little bit more. But I agree with you with the disprove. Yeah, it should say weaken.
I just didn't understand like how this didn't like. I'm not gonna argue with AAMC, but I don't understand like. I understand they're saying draw the animal. This is what we're hunter-gatherers, but this is natural. It's related to it, so I don't see why they would have the motive. I guess their only motive would have been to draw the animal, not necessarily. I was thinking in terms of these were things that they would have depicted in the scenes.
Yeah.
Perhaps maybe I went too far with that, but I just.
Yeah, I would say that it would be true if they said they were experiencing a drought and then they drew a river, so a river would appear. And
that's why I reasoned beyond the text. I thought that could have happened.
It just had the choice.
Sometimes they don't know. Like I've had things before they're like, well, actually, you could assume this with them. Sometimes they're like that, and I guess it's just a question that whatever.
Yeah, I think it's just because it says. By showing that they painted a variety of things. But if they said something like they painted something that they needed to come into the real world, then that choice would be good. But yeah, this is a whack passage. And 7 questions of it too.
Yeah, they have a lot of 7 question ones of these.
Damn, okay.
These are pretty tough.
That makes sense because I think there's fewer I don't know on the car section. Anyway, passage suggests that the condition of prehistoric life that most influenced the production of art was.
Well, I knew it wasn't leisure time because that had nothing to do with them as far as hunter-gatherers or whatever. There was
that only existed with agricultural revolution. But okay, so. I mean, there are some things in the passage that talked about it. Like, I'm looking at, like, in the age of purely practical life, everything obviously still turned around the bare earning of a livelihood. And there is nothing to justify us in assuming that art served any other purpose than a means to the procuring of food. All the indications point rather to the fact that, well, blah, blah, blah. But it seems like that hunter-gatherers were only concerned with hunting and gathering, and they didn't have any, safety net. They had no, it's like you do it or you die, right? So that's kind of, it kind of lends to like this unstable kind of way of living where you don't know if you're going to have enough food for the day. So everything that you do is geared towards survival. So if you're drawing a painting in any other type of like civilized like society, you're drawing it because you can, because you like to draw and stuff like that. You don't have to worry about like food on your plate. But hunter-gatherers, they don't have time to draw. So if they're drawing, it has to be, according to the author, it has to be just for the purpose of acquiring food.
Yeah, and I knew it wasn't social work. I was very quickly between these two, and I see where I went wrong now.
Yeah, let's see.
I think I focused,
which produced the expectation that equal skill would be shown in painting the animals that were hunted. I mean, that's in line with...
No, I think the reason I got it wrong is I read this instability, which focused on survival. Well, obviously, they were hunter-gatherers. They were focused on survival. I guess I wasn't thinking of just instability. I mean, I really didn't need that word, but I knew the reason was because they did it because of hunting.
Yeah.
But it wasn't necessarily, it wasn't that the art gave them the skill set.
Yeah. Yeah. That second part is.
But I just feel like this didn't really explain much, which is why I kind of went with this answer. I mean, I see you now, I could have gotten this right, but I guess I didn't see why just instability influenced the reason behind the art. I was thinking they did the art because they needed to hunt, I guess, and it would like it would happen for them.
Yeah.
Have the spiritual magicalness of it.
Yeah.
Which led me towards C, and it wasn't just.
Yeah, because I guess we normally like romanticize hunter-gatherers because a lot of us kind of hate this, agricultural civilized world, and we kind of want to revert back to that with like the paleo diet and stuff. But we romanticize it that way, but the truth of the matter is that hunter-gatherers have to hunt. If they don't, they starve. So they have no, that's why like civilization only existed after agriculture, because when agriculture exists, you have a surplus of food and you don't have to worry about it, and then you can do things like paint, draw, write, talk, etc., build stuff. Yeah. But the C is a good, it's in line with it. But yeah, you're right.
It was a little bit of a distraction.
The second part is the part that makes it wrong, because it's saying equal skill. Like if you can draw it well, you'll be able to aim really well or something with your bow or something.
Well, I think that's why I was thinking if they drew the painting skillfully, that would get them a better.
Yeah.
That's why I went with that. Because this didn't really say though what they benefited by producing the art. I mean, it focused on survival, but it really answered the question why for me. Versus this one, I guess, was a little bit of a too big an assumption that it would improve their skill. I mean, I know it didn't say that.
Yeah.
But I was thinking like, oh well, they would need to be somewhat skillful at what the better they painted, the better that would make hunters. I went maybe a little. Sometimes I don't know if I'm overthinking it or going too far or not enough. It's the same kind of thing. This one's a little more obvious now looking at it, but that's kind of a trouble I have. I'm getting a lot better at bam, and then okra.
Yeah. Like if they're saying what is the condition that most influenced the production of art, is it hunting skills? Like, is that the biggest influence? Like that, or rather, sorry, is that the condition that caused like the biggest influence? Like, it doesn't even say like if it's bad hunting skills or not, right? It just kind of says like you can boost your hunting skills a bit if you drew. Whereas we're looking for the one thing that makes everything else happen. Like, hunting skills part could be true, but if instability is true, then the hunting skills part like will come along with it. Because if you're focused on survival, you're going to try to do things that improve your hunting skills. But if your hunting skills are like the main like impetus or like the cause of all this stuff, it's just like kind of like a medium. And then the second part about it is what makes it like definitely wrong. Because equal skill in painting,
I was trying to relate the answer to the painting though, because that's what this passage was about. And yeah. All right, I kind of get that, I guess. I just don't like see how this was that helpful necessarily. I see why maybe that's a better answer now.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess the reason they introduced art was they thought it would help them with survival in terms of like what it said down here about the possession of the picture thing itself. So I guess I kind of see that.
Yeah, I was looking at where it says in the age of purely practical life, everything, is just about livelihood. So art served no purpose other than the procuring of food.
I highlighted that. Okay, true. That's true too.
And then I see something like yeah.
Okay. All right. That was that whole passage. Yeah. That was pretty tough.
It was.
I guess we can just finish card with cars tonight.
Okay.
We'll do one more that one I had a hard time. I had a hard time with this one.
Oh, Achilles?
Achilles. I don't like this kind of stuff, and I was pretty bored. I just kind of like whatever with this one.
Yeah. This sounds like my type of... All right, let's see. Can Achilles really be the first hero of literature? He seems a fool, an infantile narcissist. The first word of the Iliad is menin. In Old Greek, rage or wrath. The kind of rage that has an element of divine fury in it and destroys armies and breaks cities. But to us, Achilles' anger seems less divine than egotistical. His war booty, which is not booty, but like his like spoils, right? The stuff, the gold and things that he takes, has been stolen by another man. Is not the immense size of his anger almost absurdly out of proportion to its cause? Okay, so this is saying that Achilles is thought of as a hero in literature because his anger has a divine element to it. It's like the gods. But the author is starting to say that he's really just like a kid who's throwing a temper tantrum. And it's not really that he's really that divine. He just seems like egotistical, right? He's like that.
Yeah, I picked that out. I mean, it was kind of wordy, but I picked that part out. I got
It's always going to be wordy.
It was just kind of, I kind of was scamming and trying to find, like, I saw this word. I got the gist of that.
Good.
Like especially that. Yeah.
All right. He is very young, a compound of muscle and beauty with so powerful a sense of his own precedence, that he is willing to let the war go badly when his honor is sullied. The Trojans kill many Greeks and come close to burning the Greek ships and cutting off their retreat. Hoping to stem the tide, Achilles' beloved friend, Patroclus, enters the battle wearing Achilles' armor, and as a substitute for Achilles, is slain.
Yeah.
All right, so that's just kind of like telling us about the...
Not very heroic. Basically, to step back and let his friend do that.
Well, I don't think he knew it, but that's this paragraph is really just giving us plot information. It's not really telling us anything that's like the author's opinion yet. All right. Enraged, inconsolable, Achilles prepares at last to enter the battle. The sky darkens, the underworld nearly cracks open. Huge forces, unstoppable, move into place. Achilles begins to fight, expelling his anguish in a rampage. All right, that's just telling us more stuff about the plot. What I'm trying to look for is like, because the first paragraph is like the author saying like it's not divine fury, it's like infantile temper tantrum. So those two paragraphs after that were just telling us about the plot of the Iliad, and now he's going to talk more about his own thoughts. So the Western reader comes from a society that is nominally ethical. The U.S. legal and administrative system, presidential utterances, popular culture in which TV police officers rarely fail to care for the victims of crime, are swathed in concern. Since many U.S. citizens believe their society is actually indifferent to hardship, it is no surprise that irony and cynicism barnacle their attitudes towards public life. By contrast, the Greek view was savage, but it was offered without hypocrisy. Accepting death in battle as inevitable, the Greek and Trojan aristocrats of the Iliad experienced the world not as pleasant or unpleasant, or as good and evil, but as glorious or shameful, a noble rather than an ethical conception of life. Okay, so I can see where the philosophy comes into play here. Okay, so they're saying that for the Western reader, we think of things in terms of, well, there's a lot of hypocrisy in what we see, right? We see things in terms of like pleasant or unpleasant, good and evil, whereas the Greeks, they view things without hypocrisy, like at the end of the day, like they just care about glory or shame. Like if it doesn't matter if the Trojans are good or the Greeks are good, right? It doesn't matter like if they're good or evil. It doesn't matter if the war is pleasant or unpleasant. Like if they made this like today, it would be like think about a war movie today. It's going to be like anti-war. It's going to show like, you know, the horrors of war. It's going to have that kind of agenda. Whereas the Greek view is simple. It's not about pleasant or unpleasant, good or evil. It's just about glory and shame, which is like if you die in the war, it's good. You get glory. If you don't or you run away, it's shame. So, and then he kind of says that it's not an ethical concept of life. It has nothing to do with ethics. It just has to do with what's noble. Anyway, that's a lot over there. Now let's see. How can a man who stays out of the action through many days and many thousands of lines, angrily keeping to his tent as friends and enemies die, remain the hero of an epic? The answer suggests why the Iliad, for all its frightening strangeness, will not easily yield its place or its predominance at the beginning of our literary tradition. So now he's saying, how can this guy who basically doesn't even fight, who doesn't really care about friends and enemies dying, why is he the hero, right?
Yep.
And he kind of is against how the Iliad is like this foundational thing in like Western, you know, culture. All right, and then so we get right away like what the author's point of view is, right?
Yeah, I understood this really well. I was kind of ignored all that. I got what he was talking about here.
Yeah.
I got really overwhelmed in here, and I knew this was really important.
Yeah. That's exactly. You're exactly doing it right. Like I read the first paragraph. The next two were like plot, like whatever, like exposition, and then that paragraph was a lot.
God, I knew they were comparing the Greek view versus the Western reader, like how we expect things, or like how they are to us today.
Yeah.
And I didn't really focus where you talked here about glorious or shameful, and that cost me later, you'll find out. But
yeah.
I kind of got the gist. I tried to get the gist of it. I should have probably understood it a little. Maybe I should have read the paragraph again, but I kind of got a little bit.
Yeah, it's easy to get bogged down in like, because they say it's, you know, indifferent to hardship, irony, cynicism. It's good that you highlighted contrast, without hypocrisy as well. And I think that the sentence that you have like selected right now is like the best way to put it, which is like the Iliad or the Greeks see the world as glorious or shameful, and anything else is how we see it. So
I guess this is kind of like the author's thesis. I mean, that's a major point about these.
Oh yeah. He's that's where the author is saying how we perceive the world is different from how those Greeks perceive the world, and this can be like a kind of foundation for his belief that what Achilles is doing isn't really like that cool. Yeah, so then in the next paragraph he says like, how could this guy be a hero? Because he kind of sucks. Okay. Achilles' rage has the remarkable effect of stunning this haughty young man into a new conception of war. Suddenly he is groping towards an idea of honor that does not depend on the bartering of women and goods or on the opinions men have of another's prowess. We are all held in a single honor. A man dies still if he has done nothing. Good thing to highlight right there. As one who has done much. For the greatest warrior in the world, that's a devastating admission. From the Western point of view, aka that stuff with the whatever nominally ethical and stuff, Achilles has jumped forward to a private or even spiritual sense of worth. Honor is a matter between one and Zeus, or between one and oneself. And in the end, no one can be compensated for the death of another. The worth of life is immeasurable. Achilles has come close to breaking with the honor/shame code of Homer's warrior society. Okay. So he's saying that Achilles is doing something that is very different from how the Greeks viewed the world. They viewed the world as glory or shame. Achilles is doing something different. He's saying, I don't care about the glory or the shame. And what he's doing is kind of more in line or more understandable to a Western like reader like us, because we kind of appreciate that. That he's, doing it without caring about glory or shame. Like, he doesn't care that, he's done, that he's like a hero, or I shouldn't say hero, but like in the Greek sense of a hero where you die with glory. He's like kind of like, he doesn't care about that anymore. So he's more like a Western reader's values. He's more kind of like in line with. Okay, let's see. Rage such as Achilles' once awakened cannot be silenced. The questions he asks about war and death remain unanswered in the poem, because they cannot be answered. The Iliad, for all its vaunting glory, remains in tension with itself, questioning and even subverting its own ethos. And it leaves one profoundly uneasy. Achilles knows he will attain immortal renown as a hero, yet he is the only one who takes the measure of death. Only one who takes the measure of death. Okay, so it started off with me, with what I was reading, I was thinking that he's just going to like say really bad things about Achilles. But later on he kind of talks about Achilles doing something that's very, very, I don't want to say heroic because that's like a term that they use, but Achilles is doing something that is very different from what the culture of the time said was good, like glory and things like that. And then where it says he's the only one who takes the measure of death, that's what he's talking about in what you highlighted. We're all held in single honor. A man will, if you do a lot, like he has with, like fighting really well, he'll die. If you don't do anything, you'll die also. So yeah. So
I think I got the gist of it the first read through. I think here I was perhaps a little bored, and I think I kind of read some things like this type of passage. Maybe I'm reading a little too quickly and not kind of stopping myself and thinking what they mean. Because I think I'm like, oh, I'm gonna have to go back to it. But like the second time going through it, I understand it better. I mean, I know you're never gonna have something perfect your first read through.
Yeah.
But yeah. Okay.
Yeah, like my first read through right now, it's like he starts off saying this guy throws temper tantrums, and then it surprised me later, because later on he says that Achilles is kind of like a hero from what I get. It's weird. I still don't really get what he's completely saying, because he's saying something very different at first. Yeah. Okay, is this the first question right here?
Yep.
The difference implicit in the passage between the Greek concept of rage, which is divine, and Achilles' anger, which is like egotistical. Prior to the death of Patroclus, it's distinction between, basically what I was just saying, like divine, and then they say all too human, which is ego, kind of thing.
Yeah, I didn't really know what to do with this question. I knew it was like back here.
In the first paragraph. Right?
I kind of was like reading through all this and trying to like narrate each answer. I didn't really understand what this meant at first. Divine and all too human. Like I know divine is, I know what this means. I guess it was just kind of like.
Yeah.
I guess it was kind of different. Like I knew that Achilles was kind of egotistical and. The Greek concept. Where did it say what the Greek concept was?
I mean, like right there. Like the first word is menon in Old Greek, rage or wrath, but the kind of rage that has an element of divine fury in it.
I guess I was the first read through relating that to what Achilles was, but he was actually different.
Yeah, well, the way that the Greeks wrote him was that his rage was of divine origin, like a god's rage. But to us, right, we see it as infantile, egotistical. So that's why when I was reading the question stem, I was saying divine and egotistical. And in the choice, instead of saying egotistical, they just say all too human. And it makes sense because if something's not divine, it has to be. Divine means like from the gods. If it's not divine, it's from not the gods. And what else is left? Human, right?
So are we saying the Greek like the Greek regular viewpoint, I guess, on him, or like their thoughts was that his rage was divine versus all too human for everything else, not
what they versus what we think or what the author thinks, because he says but to us. Do you see where he says but to us? Here, show me.
Yep.
Yeah. So he's saying like the Greeks saw it as divine rage. To us, it seems not that divine. It just seems egotistical. And then what we just have to do in the choices is to put egotistical in another word, which could just be all too human. AKA, because it says less divine than egotistical. Less divine means less God or gods. And if there's less God or gods, what's left? Human, right?
I didn't see all too human as being egotistical, but
it's just the like, because I was looking for that too, but
that's really all too human and egotistical. I don't think because I kept focusing on egotistical when I was reading this passage, and that's not really what egotistical means.
I agree, but
and I knew it was numbers great excess because that wasn't. I knew the context that was wrong. I knew it wasn't just this. So I knew it was this.
So if something is divine, right, it's like God. And if it's not divine or less divine, it's going to be more human, right?
True.
Because at first, as I was reading that, I was saying divine and egotistical, right? But that's not in any of the choices. So if it's divine and egotistical, it means egotistical, not divine, right?
Yeah, I guess I was too focused on our viewpoint and not the. I guess the question saying what the Greek concept was. We're saying it's not, and they say it is. So it's like the opposite.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So like, I was looking for egotistical.
I
was looking for egotistical as well, but basically the major distinction is that it's not divine. I don't know why they say all too human. They could have just
that's
said
why I
something
didn't
else.
pick the answer because I just thought that whoever makes these passages
Yeah, no, they're not making it easy by
other parts. QPACs are way easier than this diagnostic question.
Yeah, I've never seen this before.
Yeah, these are the new ones, so this is probably what I'm going to expect to come the 11th.
Well, damn. Because they didn't have to write all too human. That's like a Nietzsche book. There's a book by Nietzsche called Human, All Too Human. But I guess, like, you know, they're testing your ability to...
There was a political passage. I'm usually really good with politics, and I got so many questions wrong. And I read at the end of it, it was a libertarian, like, author, writer I'm super familiar with. And I was so into the passage, and I was getting tons of questions wrong just from the way they viewpoint. I'm like, this is not right.
Yeah. You have to... Yeah. Like... There's lots of like passages that like I know like about the topic beforehand, but that can kind of like hurt you because then you rely on your own knowledge of it.
That's true too.
Yeah. Okay, it's been argued that sometimes war is anti-war because it prevents an even bigger war. How does this argument relate to the author's description of Greek ideas? Okay.
I mean, I had a hard time with this kind of stuff. Is like, just because I can't get into it sometimes. But I went through the answer choices. We didn't talk about war being political necessarily, or the Greeks saw as ethical. I think weren't we saying we kind of view things more from ethics than the Greeks did? Because the Greeks kind of did whatever they thought was right. They weren't necessarily against the ethics. So I ruled out A. And for B, it affirms the Greek belief about the worth of human life. We didn't talk about the worth of human life necessarily, so that didn't really answer the question either. As far as preventing like this whole.
Well, they talk about it as an example of what we think, right? Like there was something that said that every life is or life is immeasurable. Maybe in the last paragraph.
Right here.
Yes.
No one can be compensated for death of another. The worth of life is immeasurable.
Yeah, and that's different from the honor-shame code of Homer's warrior society. All right, this question is very philosophical here because when I read it, like I'm using like my knowledge of it, and there's a movie called Troy with like Brad Pitt that is about the Trojan War. So I'm thinking of that too, and it's like some proactive interference or something, because in that movie or in the book, like they do something where it starts off with like they put the enemy's best fighter versus Achilles, and whoever wins the war, and that is basically an example of a small war that prevents a bigger war by Achilles fighting one person kind of thing. And that, in my head, is what I'm thinking of, but I have to push that out and focus just on this passage. So like you were saying with the libertarian passage, like try not to have any of the things you already know interfere with it. Because now it's talking about, it's not saying like to give an example of that. How does this relate to the description of Greek ideas? And if you say, this is actually very hard because it's very philosophical. It's saying that if you say that war is anti-war because it prevents an even bigger war, that is under like the umbrella in philosophy of ethics, which is essentially morals. Because your ethics and morals just essentially mean that we place different like values on things. Like if you say that war is anti-war because it prevents an even bigger war, you're saying that we value that the prevention of a bigger war, right? That's like an ethical, like a moral kind of question. Like maybe like a historical example, like when they dropped the atom bomb in Japan, they said that it was to end the war because otherwise the war would just go on and the Japanese wouldn't like surrender, and it would just result in a lot more like deaths. So that's kind of like that's a moral question though, right? It's an ethical question.
Yeah.
And the Greeks didn't have morals or ethics, which is untrue. But according to this, they're saying that Greeks, they didn't really have any type of view of like preventing one war, preventing a larger war. Which again, when I was saying from the movie, they literally do that. So they're literally showing us that they have this view of morality. But in the passage, it's saying that essentially they don't. They essentially don't think of things in terms of morals and ethics. They think of things only as glory or shame. So yeah, this is a very tough one. Because I see so much of it that I
guess I should have reread this sentence right here about pleasant or unpleasant or is good and evil, but as glorious or shameful, a noble rather than unexceptionable. Well, yeah, but it said noble rather than ethical. See, that's where I was kind of getting confused.
Yeah, I think C is very good, but I don't think C considers how this argument, it doesn't reference that argument, whereas B references the argument, which is considering war in moral terms, and then it says it relates to the Greeks by saying that they think of it just in terms of glory. So choice A and B have, they say that this thing is like they reference the argument in the question stem, and then they say how the Greeks think, whereas C and D only say how the Greeks think. It doesn't really reference the thing that's said in the question stem. But
wait, was the author saying though that it considers war in moral terms? I was confused by that. The author's description of big ideas. Like, I get the Greeks consider war in terms of only glory, but I was kind of confused with this part right here. It considers war in moral terms because there it said it didn't.
So the it part is referring to the argument of sometimes war is anti-war because it prevents an even bigger war. So that's like kind of like on a meta level, a ethical/moral conception, like or a concept of something. Whereas
I keep trying to go back to the passage. This was kind of confusing because it was the way it was worded. This was confusing beyond the text. I have issues with the reasoning beyond the text sometimes, especially with this concept.
I have lots of issues with this question in general because, like I said, right in the beginning of Troy, a movie based on the Iliad, they literally say, Achilles, fight the best man from this other like group so we can prevent war. And this question's implying that the Greeks are like, no, forget it, just glory or shame. So
I guess I think it was kind of taking this passage a little bit of Achilles. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know. I just had a really hard time with this question. I have to pick it. It just sucks. Like these types of passages, I'm consistently between two things, and I was getting them wrong. I'm just almost like, I just hate that I feel like I'm guessing. I just get really torn. I can kind of see this in terms of if I had reread this. I was just having a hard time with their hypothetical, and then. I was supposed to use the passage not, and it was just tough because this is my philosophy or is kind of my weakest area.
Yeah, well, I was starting off saying like I'm probably gonna like this because I like the Iliad and stuff like that, but I actually don't like it because it's just very, very counterintuitive for someone who knows the story. So, and I still don't really get what the author is really saying because he says in the beginning that Achilles is not really a hero, and then he ends by saying, all right, let's see what...
But what frustrates me is they're saying it's because of paragraph 4 the passage doesn't indicate the Greek view of war involves heroism, but it was outside...
But they're making the passage talks about how Achilles is a hero.
I know, that's why I picked that one. And it's saying it was outside, and this was a reason beyond the text, but they're saying, well, reason within the text right here. Like, the whole question doesn't...
Yeah, I think like the major thing here is just that to see that argument in the question stem is a moral thing.
And I picked that out.
That's hard to kind of...
It didn't feel like it was heroic, though. That's why you're preventing the war. They're saying...
Because that's what happened. That's what happened in the story. So it's just that the author's description is very, very weird.
Is there like a 1-800 number to complain about the questions? Because I get so pissed off sometimes.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
God.
Well, in the bottom, let's see what this is from. We can contact the dude and be like, "Yo, what are you talking about?" The New Yorker, that's a pretty good publication. Does Homer have legs? Okay. Whatever. This is like, it's a really weird one, but I would say the answer is the answer because that's a moral statement, and they say that the Greeks didn't even really care about morals, even though that's not true. That's what I have a problem with it, because the Greeks wrote literally about ethics and stuff, but they're saying that the Greeks didn't really see things in terms of ethics or war. They just think in terms of shame or glory.
Yeah, it's like but they said noble rather than ethical conception of life.
Yeah, and noble.
If it wasn't ethical, you would think it would be heroic, though, right? Like that's why it was so. These two things really contradict each other. That's why I don't like these questions. Like,
yeah, because our conception of noble is heroic. But they're saying noble is just viewing it as glory or shame. It's weird.
Yeah. They suck. Okay.
Then I problem with that one. Yeah.
All right. It seems like you did pretty well. Aside from those questions that I would say like definitely suck. Like I'm not usually one to complain about like any of this stuff, but like that was a really this.
Yeah, I missed 2 out of 5 for a really hard passage. That wasn't terrible. That's my worst.
Yeah, that's definitely like probably like the worst that I've seen.
Yeah, these questions are kind of tough. Some of these.
Yeah, I'll have to take a look at that. The new cars thing, but I think we're out of time.
All right, cool deal.
We're 2 hours 5 minutes.
Yeah. Let me know this week if you have any more time. We'll go through biology or whatever. But that was helpful. So I feel like I'm getting a lot better at cars. Like
you are.
If I figure this out, I can boost it a lot of points.
Yeah.
So that's.
Yeah, that last passage really was.
Right.
That was a nightmare.
I feel better, but yeah. I feel like that's where they're going with their passages though, because when I took it last, they had those kind of long-winded questions like that were kind of weird.
Yeah, and they don't make it easy by like using the same keyword in the paragraph and the question stem. They change.
That's definitely tricky and misleading for sure.
Yeah,
right.
I'm gonna take a look at those. But yeah, I'm free like later in the week if you want to meet.
Yeah. Cool deal. All right.
Thanks, man.
All right. Bye.
All right.